Three media houses, including Newzroom Afrika, have been criticized for allegedly harassing a witness in the Senzo Meyiwa trial on Tuesday. Journalists followed and asked the witness a series of questions as that witness was making his way inside court. Now, some media experts have called out this action. In fact, one of those is Professor Anton Harber. He's with the Center for Journalism at Wits University. He joins us now via our video link for more on his thoughts. Prof, it's great to have you with us. Thanks very much indeed for making time to give us your take on this. SANEF expectedly releasing a statement yesterday. They saying that the journalist overstepped the line here. But my question this morning is, I wonder whether we've been clear enough about where we should draw the line to begin with.
I think that court journalists should really know that harassing a witness is not acceptable. If you saw the video yesterday, they chased the witness through the courts into another court, and really were quite relentless in pursuit of him with questions that were of no great public interest. It's not as if they were chasing a great story or pursuing the public interest in any way. So it seems to me clear that they did overstep the mark. You know, the courts have moved to allow cameras into many, if not all, of our court cases, which is a great step forward. But it comes with terms. It comes with understanding that you treat the court process, the witnesses, the magistrate or judge, all with appropriate respect. And that was breached this time. It looked to me like, you know, the worst behavior of the paparazzi. And that would inevitably cause a problem.
We'll speak a bit more about the terms of being, you know, part of the media inside court in just a moment. But, you know, a lot of attention will be placed on the journalists, and there's a whole lot of reasons for that. But it takes a team in a newsroom to broadcast that moment too. What does that, I guess, reveal about our sensitivities insofar as that is concerned? Because, you know, a large part of that broadcast actually was aired.
That's correct. And you're quite right. The television in particular is teamwork. And a lot of it depends on the culture and ethics that operates in a newsroom. So I think this is a moment in which our television channels have to introspect, have to say, are we clear? Are we training people to understand the rules, the processes, the ethics fully and properly?
Yeah. Let's speak a bit more about the terms under which, you know, the media can exist inside a courtroom. By the way, it's perhaps worth adding that this wasn't always the case. There was litigation. I think SANEF might have been involved in that as well a few years ago to actually allow the media to be present. The thrust of the argument was around public interest. But, of course, it came with terms and conditions. And I wonder whether, you know, given what happened yesterday, whether we've been clear enough about where we should kind of restrict ourselves.
I think, you know, SANEF, for example, publishes a manual that guides court reporters. That certainly when we train people, we teach them certain court rules, etc. But clearly there needs to be more of that. You know, you're quite right that getting the courts to be more relaxed about cameras in the public interest was an important step forward. It didn't used to happen, or it used to happen very occasionally. And it took some lobbying, some court action, a lot of work to get it put in as a routine thing. And in terms of public interest and in terms of the justice system, that's an important and valuable step forward. So we must look after it. We must respect it. To lose that right is a blow not just for journalists and the stations, but for the public's right to follow these trials and watch them closely.
Yeah. On that note, I guess, and with the benefit of hindsight, was it the right decision by the judge then to ban some of these media houses from actually broadcasting, especially when you think about who ultimately bears the brunt of that? I mean, it was people who rely on TV stations to follow this case who ultimately were disadvantaged here. And those are innocent people, many would argue.
Look, I think if he sustains the ban, I think that will be a problem because people do have a right to follow the trial. But sitting in the court that day, the judge, he could take much more severe measures, but the most immediate thing he can do is say, please leave my court. And I think it was a way of a sobering lesson to reset the patterns and the rules. I think the problem will come if he extends it beyond yesterday, and they don't hammer out a new agreement to ensure coverage is consistent, appropriate, proper, etc.
Yeah, well, to be fair, in fact, he did allow the cameras back eventually, although the proviso was that we shouldn't show the face of the witness itself. So I guess there was some kind of middle ground that was ultimately reached. Prof, this moment, though, does also, I guess, call us to reflect around the culture that exists, particularly in the field, and maybe not just in the field, and maybe this is just our focus because of what happened yesterday, but there is almost this kind of herd mentality sometimes, especially when, our colleagues feel desperate to chase the scoop, as it were. And perhaps this is a moment for us to start thinking about the cost of that and where we should, again, hold back.
Most definitely. We should be watching the British press, for example, where the behavior of the paparazzi has really destroyed the reputation, the standing, the credibility of the tabloid media, because they do behave appallingly. And we know that went to the extent of tapping people's phones. For which they were prosecuted. And I think the lesson we learn is we have to rebuild trust in the media. We have to rebuild our relationship with the public, which has taken some knocks in recent years. And that requires a conduct, a respect, a behavior, an ethic that builds trust. And it doesn't make us, as journalists, look like we're wild, badly behaved, no rules, and do that sort of thing.
Yeah. Many people who took great offense at what took place yesterday might be asking questions about whether there should be any more sanctions, not only against the journalists, but perhaps the media houses themselves. What's your take on that?
I don't think so. I think the point was made.
Right.
I think there's a reset. I think the media houses have all apologized, and I hope they will be scrutinizing their internal processes and their ethics and their practices and their culture to make sure that this sinks in and doesn't happen again. If it happened again, it really would be harmful.
Absolutely. It's certainly a teaching moment for everyone who is watching, especially those who are in the media itself. Professor Anton Harber, thanks for your take. Really do appreciate it. Professor Harber is with the Center for Journalism at Wits University.